What's going on, Titan Nation? Everybody, come on in. We're about to get ready to get started. I got something special in store for you this evening. So we're going to get this show popping right now. As y'all see on the screen, we got quite a bit to talk about. So y'all get ready. We talking wide receivers. We talking cuts right here on Titans in Truth.
Tighten up! Let's get Titans up! Titans up! I've been scoping from the sideline, waiting for the right time to send the freshest team to scrimmage, so I'm busting y'all. Welcome to Nashville. We got this here. Don't worry about it. We got this here. This shit is so out here loud and clear. Don't worry about it. See, we got this here. It's a brand new dance and it's about to go live. Tighten up, Nashville, rep the 615. First you tighten two steps, step to the right. Then you tighten two step to the left. Blue jerseys everywhere. Game pace, yeah, we got it on. Sticking out our chest, beating on it like it's King Kong. Count that. It's about to get rough. Here come the train, y'all. Tennessee, tighten up. Let's get tightened up.
Good evening, Titan Nation. How's everybody doing? Welcome into a new edition of Titans in Truth. I'm your man, Chris, aka Blue Enforcer, and we are going to have a great show for you this evening. And let me make sure I pull myself off of here because y'all can't see me right now. There it is. And as y'all can see, I got a special guest on the screen, and there's only one way I can bring this brother into the show. I gotta put on some good classic hip hop, something that
The New York Times side, staying alive was no job.
I gotta put on some Wu-Tang. As y'all can see, I got my guy from ESPN, my guy, Mr. TD Turron Davenport, aka Mr. Bow Tie Swag, is in the building. TD, welcome to the show. It's good to have you back. How's everything going?
Oh, everything is everything, man. Appreciate you having me on. Definitely, it's draft time, so digging into the All-22. I actually was watching some Greg Newsome, the second out of Northwestern, before I jumped on here. So it's what we do.
Absolutely. And I mean, I know you are the man when it comes to just knowing players and having that knowledge, and something that I've learned a lot from and everything. So, being a mentor to me and everything, which is I appreciate that more than you could possibly know. And going into this, I mean, a lot has happened recently within the last 48 hours. And speaking of corners, with it now, seeing that you were talking about Greg Newsome, the second from Northwestern, looks like cornerback is a big need now because, the Titans, they cut Malcolm Butler and then they cut Kenny Vaccaro right behind that. So what were your initial thoughts when these cuts happened? I think a lot of people thought this was probably something that was expected. Maybe not in this, maybe not like this, but obviously something was expected. But what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, these were both moves that didn't surprise anyone. If it did surprise you, you may not be that well in tune with the team. Butler carrying that high cap number, it was something that they were going to have to do, either redo the deal or let him go. And they went the route of letting him go. I don't know for sure that they went to him with a renegotiating option. I know that that's something that was being considered. And then Vaccaro, that's another one. Yeah, Amani Hooker has played so well, and they really like Dane Cruikshank. And there's some safeties in this draft that they'll be able to get, like a Josh Bledsoe out of Missouri, a later round guy, Hamza Nasruddin out of Florida State. Those are guys that could come in and give them basically what they want as far as a reserve safety / a special teams guy. So it is what it is, man. The team had to free up some money. They kind of operated from an area of strength with safety and just an area of strength in the draft with corner to free up some options as far as bringing back some guys and possibly chasing some free agents.
Absolutely. And I, when I saw that, I figured, it's time for Monty Hooker to go ahead and get in that starting role because he has that experience. Now we'll probably get to see what Dane Cruikshank, what can he do? What can he bring? Because now he's gonna be kind of in that in the hooker role, so to speak, on that. Now, and I'm glad you actually mentioned that because about Malcolm Butler being cut, I guess that was the thing I was going to wonder, and I know you kind of went into that. Is it that did John Robinson maybe sit him down and say, hey, we might need to restructure. We may have to look at moving some money around if possible to kind of help the team. And I didn't know if it was an issue of did they approach him with that? Maybe they didn't approach him correctly, and it's just that when that was asked, him and his agent just said, no, can't do it. And that's where the release happened. I didn't know if there was any, possible conversation about that.
Well, again, as I said, I'm not sure definitely that conversation happened. I know it was something that was being considered. So I'm not going to change what I said and tell you I know when I don't. That would be dishonest. But
Right.
I mean, end of the day, it ended up being a release. And now here the Titans are. Fortunately for them, they drafted Christian Fulton in the second round. As of right now, he and Adoree Jackson are the starters. Chris Jackson will probably slide into the nickel role, which is something he did to open the year. You got Breon Borders, Kareem Orr as depth options. But you look at this draft, I mentioned Greg Newsome the second. You got J.C. Horn also as an option at 22. Then you got some other guys like Ifitu Melifano out of Syracuse, T.J. Graham out of Oregon, Keith Taylor Jr. Those two guys, Melifonte and Taylor Jr., these are guys that are long corners. Taylor especially, he moves really well. I had him on Talking with TD. Melifano is just like a nice long arm guy. He was an interesting player for Josh Palmer, who I had on Talking with TD. He was a guy that he really stood out to him as far as corners at the Senior Bowl. So it's a deep class, and I know the Titans are doing their homework. I mean, you could Kelvin Joseph out of Kentucky. There's a lot of options. DJ Daniel out of Georgia, Tyson Campbell out of Georgia. I mean, we could go on and on. There's a lot of really good corners.
And speaking of Talking with TD, and if y'all haven't checked out Talking with TD, I don't know where y'all been. Y'all need to go check it out wherever you get your podcast, on Spotify, iTunes, anywhere, because this man has knowledge. We talking shop right now. This is what he does. And speaking of your show, I went back and listened, especially when you had Keith Taylor and another guy that you were very, very high on. Tell me something about Elijah Molden, because I know you were very, very high on him when you had that Husky 4 on your show last week.
Yeah. We had Levi Onwuzurike on. Another guy that I'm really high is a D tackle, Joe Tryon, one of my top 5 edge guys, DN / outside linebacker. But Molden himself, he's one of my favorite DBs. And I like those guys that are just dogs. And you mentioned Butler and Vaccaro being released. Well, there was a lot of heart and soul of that defense released. And I know that Molden is a guy that could come in and instantly, as a rookie, become one of the leaders in that secondary. Is what he did at Washington. And as far as the communication side of things, that's something that we talked about on the show. And he just really emphasized the importance of that as a nickel, getting that call and relaying it to everyone. And that's something that Logan Ryan did, and you watch Molden, he's a guy that rush off the edge. You see him playing man against various types of receivers. You see him in single high. You see him just doing everything. And I think that's something that the Titans could really use as a nickel, especially with Desmond King likely moving on.
Yeah, and that's definitely very very cool. And that's something that is definitely going to be missing, is that leadership. And we're going to have some young guys stepping in right away to produce and contribute right out of the gate. And those are some guys that are definitely very impressive with. And of course, for letting everybody know, there is going to be a show later on where I do go into corners, because that is a need now. But switching gears a bit, let's talk about a position that's near and dear to your heart. Let's talk about these wide receivers, because I believe now that Corey Davis did not receive a tag. and is set to become a free agent. And some other notable wide receivers are out there. And I know that today, I believe today, I think John Brown was released either today or yesterday. I think it was. Um, who do you have on? Who do you have your eye on as maybe some good wide receivers that are maybe in free agency, and we'll get into the draft, who could be really good potential fits? I like Rashard Higgins myself. I think he could be a good fit. But what would you think is a good solid fit for what the Titans need?
Well, I think first and foremost, they need to continue to work on bringing Corey Davis back because he's the ultimate complement for A.J. Brown. They found a nice trio there with Ryan Tannehill. And finally this year, after some things in 2019 as far as targets were concerned, they started to go Corey Davis's way. And he cashed in and he did a really good job. So, obviously that's the first option. But you mentioned Higgins. I tell you this. Rashard Higgins was a guy I was banging the table for in 2018, after that season what was done. So, yeah, absolutely. He's someone that I would point to. He's a playmaker, coming out of Colorado State. He did a lot of things that were just, outstanding as far as being able to get open and just his routes. He's a downfield option. I really like him, and I think it would be a bargain between $5 and $6 million. You could get him. I like Keelan Cole too, out of Jacksonville. Now he wasn't ultra productive last year, but he is another guy along the boundary, that can make some things happen. Very good player from that perspective. Just looking at more guys in that same box. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders became available. That would be awesome for A.J. Brown, right? To give him a veteran guy that he can lean on and learn just how to attack each day. Emmanuel Sanders has done that. He really did that for the guys in San Francisco. Was a good force for Mike Thomas. So that's another one. Who else am I missing? Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne is a very intriguing prospect. About 6'2", 190 or so, but he's a vertical guy. He does a lot there. So those are some free agents, that are kind of floating under the radar. But then you always got good old faithful. And this is a guy that I've been on since his days in Cal, and that's Marvin Jones. I really enjoy watching him play. You talk about, Gumby-like ability along the boundary. Absolutely, man. It makes all the spectacular catches. He's a possession guy as well. So that's another option. I saw you pop Curtis Samuel on the screen. He's a lot of people are going to pigeonhole him into a slot guy, but he could go out there and win on the outside. In fact, he did that a lot, especially on third downs when they needed plays. So I like that option. Josh Reynolds, too. I see him on your list. This is a guy coming out of college. He was a vertical threat, and I watched him down there in person at the Senior Bowl, and he was eating. I'm talking about as an X, which is typically what they had Corey Davis doing, just getting off the line, stacking the DB and winning. And he's not a fast guy like Will Fuller or like, Deshaun Jackson or T.Y. Hilton, but he's still a vertical threat. And that's the same thing you get in Marvin Jones.
Absolutely. And I because I know you were definitely a fan of Marvin Jones, which I think that's why I have him pretty high on that list in particular. And, I heard you on Jared on Stillman and Company earlier today, and I know the name was thrown out of John Brown, and he just wasn't really feeling, that particular option to the Titans and John Brown. But one other guy that I do want to ask you about, and this is probably just a dream of mine, because I wanted him ever since he came out of college from USC, and this is probably too expensive. What about old Juju Smith-Schuster? Obviously a little bit, maybe a same similar mold as A.J. Brown, but what do you think about Juju?
I think he's more of a slot option, and he's an interesting player, but I think you could get that in the draft. There are options there. And I think that there's not really a huge drop off, to be honest with you. So I it's a name, yeah, definitely. But I think for what he would bring to the table, you could find similar play in the draft. Elijah Moore, that type of guy. He'll give you a consistent, large catch radius, even though he's not the biggest guy, but playmaking ability out of the slot for a lot cheaper.
Absolutely. And I got a couple of shout outs out here. I see C Dub and Steven on here and AZ Big. How's everybody doing? I apologize if I'm not getting to everybody's comments quickly and everything. I apologize for that, but we definitely gonna take some comments. I saw one. Let's see, Kenneth Cray was wanting to ask you if you had to choose one, would you go with Corey or Jonnu?
Wow, that's a tough question. I probably would go with Jonnu Smith just because his impact in the blocking game, but more specifically, the confidence that Ryan Tannehill has in him in the red zone. He scored 8 touchdowns. All of them were in the red zone. And just seeing some of the things that they did as far as just, dropping it in the bucket in the corner of the end zone, having him run a slant, having him just – there's just so many things that they did with him. Finding him in the back of the end zone on just high pointing balls, whereas, okay, it's your ball or nobody's ball. And I think just the confidence level, 65 targets, 41 catches, that's how many times Jonnu Smith was targeted, and how many balls he caught from Tannehill. So I'm going there, but it's not a wide margin because, Corey Davis, you guys know that I'm very high on Corey Davis, and that goes back to the days in college, and he's a really good player.
Yeah, and actually, in sneak peek, there's one of his old teammates that could be coming out in the draft. We're definitely going to be talking about because there's watched a little bit about this guy, and we're going to get into him in just a second. But hey, I appreciate everybody tuning in on here. We got Turron Davenport, ESPN Titans reporter, Mr. Bow Tie Swag himself. Always look at GQ on there, but. Now, in switching gears to the draft, and I'm going to put up some of my top receivers in the draft. These are just some of my top 10 and a couple of dark horses that I do like. We're definitely going to get into the top 5 in just a bit, but we got guys like Bateman and Kadarius Toney, Rondell Moore, Tylan Wallace, Amon-Ra St. Brown. We got some others, Terrace Marshall, Amari Rogers, Elijah Moore, De'Ami Brown from North Carolina, Seth Williams from Auburn is definitely a few good guys, and got a hometown guy from here in the M-Town in Memphis, and DeMonte Cosi that could be a dark horse. But I want to ask you, TD, before we do go diving into the top 5. Did I get my list? Did I have my list right? Did you think I missed somewhere?
Yeah, you had some guys on there. I really like Cornell Powell and Josh Palmer. I will put them on there. I don't recall seeing Rashad Bateman on there either, who's a really good player. But yeah, for the most part, it's there. What I always do is I break it down in X, Z, and slot because I think it's not right to compare Amari Rogers to Josh Palmer. They're 2 completely different players, different positions. I don't think it's right to compare Dwayne Eskridge to Rashad Bateman. These are different guys. And speaking of Eskridge, he'll be on Talking with TD next week, as well as Demetric Felton. So definitely look for that. So, that's just the way that I break them down. And some guys, and my man Emery Hunt from Football Game Plan, he goes a little bit more into it where he'll have guys as just like inside. He calls them inside receivers. And I like what he said as far as how he molds that after Marcus Colston, a guy with the Saints that, did a lot of things and made that slot position what I call like the power slot. So that's something you'll see. But I just go slot, X, and Z.
Yeah, absolutely on that. And actually, in speaking of Rashad Bateman, this is a cat I do have as my top receiver on my board, even though I got his name spelled incorrectly. I apologize for that. It's Rashad Bateman out of Minnesota. And this is just some things that I noticed as I was looking at him, watched some film of a couple of games of him, definitely can find holes in the zone. He just simply goes up and catches the football, has some very good speed. Didn't really see much as far as blocking in the run game. I know wide receivers, all they do is make catches and catch touchdowns. That's all they do. And I just, there was a game or 2 where he really took over. But again, I know that he only played 4 games for this past season because he originally opted out and opted back in as far as that. But I definitely could see Rashad Bateman either playing inside or outside. And then another guy I think I want to get into who could be a slot guy, definitely, or could move outside maybe at some point. His speed is just crazy, is Kadarius Toney. And, I mean, I just love his speed. He's tough. He's going to go for those extra yards. Ain't afraid to take a hit. Very elusive. But I only saw that he had really one good year of solid production, which was last year. I know he got overshadowed by Kyle Pitts, who is amazing, by the way. But there was an article that I saw. Coming in. I believe it was from Andrew Olson of I actually got the article pulled up that basically was saying that there was a scout that basically said they were out on Kadarius Toney. Saturday Down South is the name of the site. And, he didn't have no check mark, so he probably don't know what he's talking about. But as far as he said, an NFL scout basically said he favors his rap career over football. And we know that J-Rob, he wants guys that love football, that just love football and love the game. But what were your thoughts specific on Bateman and Kadarius Toney? And how did
well,
fit?
First of all, with Toney having a rap career and interest there, I don't know who this guy is that you mentioned, but unless he's spending every day with him, I don't think he's really in a position to say the guy has a passion that's not for football. It is okay to love two things. It's okay to love three things. I mean, I find it interesting because you have players who are very much into social injustice, right? And we don't say Ryan Tannehill doesn't have a passion for football because he is so deeply involved in social injustice, thanks to some of the guys he's been exposed to. We never said Logan Ryan, because of his love for animals and the rescue shelters and the different things that he's done. We never said he didn't love football. It's very possible to have multiple things. I mean, we got to get out of this mode that these guys are supposed to wake up in the morning on football and go to bed on football, and even when they're asleep, have football. That bothers me, and I think that's something that needs to be avoided. But as far as Toney as a player, he is very dynamic. I like the fact that he could be a Z, he could be a slot. He's one of those guys I categorize as a multi-purpose one. You run jet sweeps with him. You just do things that manufacture touches. You get him in the backfield, and you can run tosses. There's a lot of things. Run routes out of the backfield. There's an assortment of guys that you'll see in that category. And I think he's right there. Now, you will occasionally have a concentration drop, but, I mean, those are things that can be improved. And the thing that I liked down there in Mobile, after practice at the Senior Bowl, he was on the jugs machine, and that shows good effort, and realization that you need to catch as many passes as possible. Now, as far as Bateman, I think, this year was a little difficult to really gauge him from because, he dealt with the COVID. He lost a lot of weight. I think it was like 15 pounds. And then, that's something that's tough to recover from, but he still had a solid year. I like a lot of his 19 tape, big time player. You watch him in the bowl game. That was really exciting. So, yeah, I mean, he's someone that definitely stands out. And he's the guy, actually, he's my top Z. I love the way he attacks the football. He plays with size and, the speed that he showed in the pro day. I didn't see that force 3 speed on the field, but I still saw enough speed. And he's a really good player. And he's a guy that could definitely be in play at 22, if not, a trade back option for the Titans.
Absolutely with that. And I had to really go and sit and really watch Rashad Bateman now. And I'm really getting to receivers now because it just seems Titans are probably going to go anywhere because it's not – in the beginning, it seemed like it would only be edge rusher or defense were going in. But now it looks like they could really go just about anywhere. So I'm definitely paying attention to that. I do like a lot of what Rashad Bateman does bring to the game. And Kadarius Toney, I mean, that he had a play against South Carolina that I just thought was incredible. Caught the pass, caught a slant route in the middle, and he got himself open, and then just with the acceleration, 5 Gamecocks could not bring this man down on his way to the end zone. They all missed him. And I just thought that was probably one of the more incredible plays I've seen in college football, period. And that was just absolutely beautiful on that. Another guy that I want to get into, and I know this is the guy that the Titans have definitely saw some interest in. I'm gonna put him up on the screen. Is Rondell Moore from Purdue, and I mean, like Kadarius Toney, very very speedy, very shifty, can run the jet sweeps. You can line him up anywhere. Has some return ability. Now there is some durability issues as far as injuries that he's dealt with and everything, and he had a big time breakout, I believe, in 2018. But then the last couple of years, even with this COVID related season, again, I put down 3 games that he had. He had 35 catches in 3 games, which is pretty impressive in those 3. But what are your thoughts on Rondell Moore as a possibility, even though the Titans have spoken with him?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they're going to speak with pretty much all of the receivers. It's virtual, so you could get all the meetings in you want. Moore is an interesting guy. I think you have to go back to his freshman year tape, especially the Ohio State game, where that dude just caught everything. And I think the things you have to look at is his ability after the catch. And that dude is ultra powerful as far as the lower body is concerned. He dominated the Buckeyes and just pretty much, ended their run there through the Big Ten. I just wonder what he is after the injury, but he is a good player. I just wonder how much it's going to take to get him back to that explosiveness that he had pre-injury. That's really my thing with him.
Absolutely. And last of my top 5, and I know you probably got a busy schedule coming up right now, but a couple of guys that I am enamored with, that I am just really liking. One, of course, is from Oklahoma State, Tylan Wallace. I love this kid. I love this kid. And I love what he brings in the game as far as the speed ability, the route running, high catch radius. I just think he's a big play. And I really liked in some of the games that I saw with Amon-Ra St. Brown of USC. Definitely has some good hands. Definitely a solid route runner. Of course, we know his brother, Equanimeous St. Brown with the Packers, and has another brother, Osiris St. Brown, as well, playing some ball. So you got some receivers in that family. So am I crazy with these two? I know that they're talking to everybody, but what do you think of those two?
Yeah, I think with those guys, you have guys who play bigger than their size, and I think, and you mentioned it, the catch radius with Amon-Ra St. Brown, that's definitely something to watch. And you see him making some explosive plays down the field. I like the way he tracks the football. But speaking of that with Tylan Wallace, I got to speak to him at the Senior Bowl, had him on talking with TD as well. He's my first draft prospect on the series. And, the thing that I thought was really interesting about him is he's a former baseball player. He's a center fielder at that. So that kind of tells you where he is as far as tracking the football. And it's funny because watching him on Saturdays, I thought that he was a 6'3", 6'2" at the least receiver. But you see him in person and he's 5'10" and maybe 6 feet, somewhere in that ballpark. He plays so much bigger. He plays above the rim. It's attractive, seeing the things that he does, the big plays that he makes. And he's someone that tracks the ball with the best of them. So those are definitely 2 really good players. Before I get out of here, for me, I just kind of run through how I looked at some of these positions. For X, speaking of Wallace, he is my top X receiver. And this is just talking about guys who will be available to the Titans. So obviously Devontae Smith, Waddle, those are types that Jamar Chase. I'm not really going to get into them because it's a fruitless exercise.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Like I said, Tylan Wallace at X, Josh Palmer, vertical threat. He's really good. He actually reminds me of Marvin Jones. I told him that on the show, and he liked that. He said that he's studying Devontae Adams, and he started to incorporate some of his moves. I think that's really good. Those releases that Adams brings are silly. To be able to use those, that's a plus. Cornell Powell is a guy also out of Clemson that I like. Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl, actually compared him to Sterling Sharp, and I think that's very high praise. For me personally, I saw a lot of Jason Avant in him as far as his ability to bump aside and play the slot and be a big body, consistent pass catcher, a guy that will help your quarterback get into a rhythm. And I know that's something that Ryan Tannehill especially really likes. Austin Watkins out of UAB, you talk about a big explosive player. He's another one. That's my 4th X. Sage Surratt, out of Wake Forest. I know that, the Titans like him. He's another one that will go up and get the ball. He'll play that boundary for you. Des Fitzpatrick out of Louisville, Nico Collins out of Michigan, and another guy that I like, and I've actually, put him on the Titans for a long time now. This is going to be the second year that I've done this, and that's Anthony Schwartz out of Auburn. Nobody's talking about him, but he has world-class speed. And if you could get him to get on that line and run those vertical routes without being bumped and slow down at the line of scrimmage, I think you have something. Rob Moore, he focuses on releases and those type of things. So that should help a guy like Schwartz become a better NFL player than college. So that's my X. The Z, we talked about Bateman. Terrence Marshall out of LSU. He's another one that's a big body. You have him at Z. You bump A.J. Brown to X or put him in the slot at times, and you still got a big body that can run that deep over route, underneath the dig, or underneath the shallow cross, the slant that Brown runs off of that play action. He's another one. Shi Smith, I really like him, his strength through the catch point. He's a playmaker as well. He'll go up and snatch that thing out of the air. It goes to like 80-20, those 50-50 balls with him. And then St. Brown, I have him at Z. And then, for slot, that's where Amari Rodgers is a guy that I really, really like. I love what he brings. His routes, he's smooth, yards after the catch. In fact, he's a guy that at his pro day today, he took snaps out of the backfield. He's working some reps there. I think he's someone that you can move all over the place, And then from there, you got Elijah Moore. Not really much I need to say about him. Everybody knows what he does. He's a consistent playmaker. He's a guy that I love him on those bang eights out of the slot position. He really makes that work. A sleeper there in the slot is Kay Johnson out of South Dakota State. Had him on. Okay. But when you watch him, think Doug Baldwin. He's that type of player where, he just knows how to get open. He's not overly fast, not overly quick, but he knows how to get open, and he plays with an edge. I really like that. He's a guy out of, like I said, South Dakota State. Watch the Minnesota game against St. Juice. He did a pretty nice job there. And St. Juice is a corner that I know the Titans have interest in. So those are the slot guys. All purpose, Kadarius Toney, Rondell Moore, that's where I have him, Amari Rodgers, Dwayne Eskridge, a guy we didn't really talk about, but as I said, he'll be on talking with TD, and you just talk about just that lion mindset, that lion approach to things, and he's a dynamic player. You could put him in the slot. He played some running back in high school. He just brings it, and even against the run, you watch him, you'll see games where he goes and he digs DBs out down the field, and that's something. A 5'9" guy. 190 or wherever he's going to ultimately fall, you like to see that because blocking is a 1-2 thing, and he clearly shows that he wants to do it. Tutu Atwell is another one. Now, you will have some drops, and this is, every time I mention him, Jared brings up the drops, but, he has a jetpack attached to his back. You know what I mean? You look at some of these games, especially like the Miami game, he caught a crosser and he hit that sideline, and it was, Tyreek Hill, that right there. So he's somebody that you could absolutely put something in the game plan to utilize. And then I'll round it out with Demetric Felton, who, brings so much to it. He's a dynamic player. He's a guy, you don't really know what he is. He could play running back. He could play receiver. He gives me those Eric Metcalf vibes. That's how I look at him. Just a guy that could just do it all. And he could play the slot as well. He can line up outside if you need. That's why I compare him to Metcalf, and he can help you in the return game. And I think that's important to look at. You need guys that could double as returners because let's face it, this team hasn't had a punt return for a touchdown, at least since I've been here. And that's 3 seasons.
Yeah, and I mean that's definitely a few guys that do have that return ability. I have, a couple of dark horses that I'm starting to pay attention to. Bless you on that. One is from North Texas, Jalen Darden, and I mean this guy is twitchy. This guy is elusive and has that bomb diggity speed, and I'm just crazy. And like you said with Dwayne Eskridge, I mean, I saw a play in particular where he went deep and he split that double team with the greatest of ease. Like just in stride. That safety was working hard to get to him, and he broke it in stride like effortless. So I definitely enjoy those guys. The two North Carolina wide receivers I like, De'Ami Brown and Daz Newsome, are definitely a couple of good guys I like. And I gotta go home with, I like Josh Palmer because I watched him at Senior Bowl. I thought he was great in one-on-ones. He caught just about everything that was going at him and went against some good corners. And DeMonte Coxey from Memphis, I watched him, like this kid late. I think he could definitely make some production. But to get you out of here, because I know you got some things to do now, I do got one last question I got to ask. In the craziness, bow tie wise, are you a stripes guy or are you a paisley guy when it comes to bow ties?
Well, I wear it all. I think it's just going to depend on what pattern you have going in the shirt and the sport coat. I mean, you've seen both of those patterns and other ones. So I'm not really a particular this or that. I think if you're going to do it, you might as well do all of it.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, that is the expert, Mr. TD, Turron Davenport, with us. It's been a pleasure. It's been a treat. Y'all make sure y'all check him out on Talking with TD. And, of course, on Fridays also with TD and Nate on Fridays as well. So make sure y'all go to Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast. Y'all better check him out. Because like you said, he got Dimitri Felton coming up. He just did a episode with, I think, Deontay Smith, the offensive lineman, and also Josh Palmer. Yeah, and Michael Carter, the running back.
The running back out of North
Yes.
Carolina. And actually, the Nate and TD show is on ice for now till the season, but you can catch on Thursdays 3 to 4, TD Power Hour.
TD Power Hour, as always. So, again, TD,
appreciate you, man.
Been a pleasure. Thank you. And I thank you for being here. And you have a very good rest of your night. And we will be talking again.
All right.
Thank you. Everybody, that was Turron Davenport, Big TD, ESPN Titans reporter, coming in with some smoke as we talk some shop about these wide receivers. And I mean that he dropped some dimes, he dropped some knowledge, and that's why I wanted him on, because I figure if we're talking wide receivers, let's talk with a guy who played the position and is, an expert when it comes to that. He knows the different positions, the X, the Y, the slot. He knew it all. So that was great and everything. So, again, I apologize I couldn't get to a lot of comments because I just wanted to make sure, because I knew that I know his time was limited, and I know he got some things he has to take care of and things like that. Let's Tighten Up says DeMonte Coxey in the 7th round. I wouldn't mind him either. I like DeMonte Coxey. Big, nice, tall, long receiver that can pretty much do it all with that. So I definitely like that. And Jameson, of course, being a Cornhusker fan, was talking about Rondell Moore. And, I mean, he does have that speed. Once the ball is in his hands, he's electric. Definitely electric. And Steve says expect the Titans to go to Purdue's Pro Day for Rondell Moore. They're already supposed to be speaking to him, so I'm pretty sure they are going to be trying to go to his Pro Day. Of course, Texas and Clemson had their Pro Days today as well. And as he mentioned, Amari Rodgers, there was a representative there. They had Amari Rodgers, running some plays from the backfield, trying to see if he can line them up anywhere. And I believe he ran an unofficial 4.4 at his Pro Day. And that was something that was impressive. So I like Amari Rodgers. I think Amari Rodgers could definitely be a nice fit here with the Tennessee Titans. But in going on with the show, some other things I wanted to get to with that is, the Titans, the cap is set at $182 million. So the cap is set. That's where it's going to be at 182.5. The Titans right now are about around 17 million under the cap. And so, there are probably going to be some more cuts and some more changes coming. Ben Jones could be an option. Maybe they talk to Roger Saffold and Taylor Lewan about a possible pay cut, because TD said it on Stillman and Company that during their power hour that if it was him, to really do some of the things that they want to do, they would need to maybe cut about another $10 million to maybe be able to really do some things they want to do. And so, that could happen if you if you cut Ben Jones, which I know you don't want to, because he is the quarterback of the offensive line, but that's $6 million, $6.25 million. And then if you restructure Lawan or Saffold, bang, you probably got your money right there. But I don't know if they'll do that. We'll definitely see, because, again, it's been a bloodbath. Just today, this morning, the Kansas City Chiefs cut both of their tackles. Eric Fisher, a former number 1 overall pick, and Mitchell Schwartz. And that could be a big mistake by the Kansas City Chiefs. The Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes was running for his life when those guys were not in there. So it's going to be a wonder what Kansas City is going to do, because, they're still probably like $20 million over the cap, because, they paid Travis Kelce, they paid Tyreek Hill, and they paid some guy almost $500 million. Oh, yeah, Patrick Mahomes. So, Kansas City is in a bind. New Orleans is in a bind. They just let Quan Alexander go. And, Trey Hendrickson is probably not coming back. So that's some things that we got to see. We definitely got to, check this out and everything. Steven says, next NFL beating Titans should talk about the changing of the restructure rules. True enough. We got to see how this goes in this particular type of situation, because, COVID messed up everything. Because think about this. If it wasn't for COVID, let's just say the cap was still where it is at 198. So that is about 17 million. That is about 17 million. That's about 17 million under. And if the Titans had still made the moves that they made, the Titans right now would be about $34 to $35 million under the cap right now if it stayed where it was at 198. They would be $35 million under the cap and could really do some work. Now, once the TV deals kick in, then the salary cap should go up exponentially in 2022 and 2023. We'll definitely see about that. And let's tighten up is right. Kansas City could be vulnerable. And, you got teams like Buffalo. You got teams like Cleveland, who got money to spend that could do some damage with that. So, and keep it going with that. There's a lot of crazy cuts out there. It's a bloodbath, and it's been that way, and it's going to continue to be that way. A good question for y'all to come out with is this. The Titans are going to have to make a decision whether to accept Rashaan Evans' 5th-year option or not. And I want to read some of y'all comments, and I thank everybody for sticking with me. Again, I'm sorry I couldn't get to everybody's comments earlier. What's up, Chris Frazier? Yes, I did see the Titans are very, very high on Joseph Ossai, that they've spoken to him a couple of times. And if y'all saw my pass rusher video, I love Joseph Ossai. I love Joseph Ossai. Definitely. I'm a big fan. But should we pick up Rashaan Evans' 5th-year option? I'm going to go and say no. Absolutely not. I would not pick up his 5th-year option. So I would not pick up that 5th-year option. I would just let him play this out, let him earn it, because I'm not ready to commit, because that means you got to commit a whole year out. I would say no. I would try to trade Rashaan if I could and keep Jayon. But we're definitely going to see what happens with that because, again, this is a very interesting year. And, of course, I see Let's Tighten Up. I say no off top of my head. But then again, players ball out on their decline options. Obviously, we see Jack Conklin, Corey Davis being another. They ball out. And, that's why we're in the position that we're kind of in. So we'll definitely see. Let's Tighten Up says, I prefer to trade him and re-sign Jayon, but that's unlikely. I agree. I mean, between Jayon, Corey, and Jonnu, one of the three have got to come back. I don't know if they'll be able to pull two of the three, but one of the three have got to come back. And I think it's either going to be Davis or Jonnu, and I'm just afraid Jayon is going to be on the outside looking in. And I hate that for him. I hate that for him. I really do. Because I like Jayon. I like Jayon a whole lot, and I hate to see him go. And so, saw a lot. I hear a lot of people out there saying, look, re-sign Corey Davis and sign Carl Lawson. Lawson is a hot name out there. Carl Lawson is a very hot name. And I want Carl Lawson too. If you can get Carl Lawson at a very decent amount, then another thing I would do if it was me, and we'll probably talk free agency this weekend because the negotiation periods will start, and then there will be a live show on Wednesday as free agency begins. I would go and get Carl Lawson and then go sign Trey Hendrickson. That way you got two pass rushers. Or if you can get a good defensive end, maybe a Romeo Okwara or something like that, and then you draft a Joseph Osai. That way you got 4 to 5 pass rushers and you got depth. And that doesn't kill Harold Landry. You get younger, faster, and better at the position. That's just me. So Joseph says, I will bring back Jonnu. I love him. I think we all want to bring back either Corey or Jonnu, without a doubt, because there's not too many guys that can do what Jonnu does. And, I mean, Kyle Pitts, if Kyle Pitts was looking like he would be available around where we were picking, then I would feel better with letting Jonnu go. But Kyle Pitts is going to be gone within the first 10 picks, if not the first 5 picks. He's going to be gone. We're not going to be able to get Kyle Pitts at this point. So bringing back Jonnu, I think, is the most important. But yes, I would say no to Rashaan Evans' 5th-year option. So we talked a lot about the wide receivers. We got into my top 5, and again, I will show you my top 5 receivers that I have once more. We talked about Rashad Bateman. We talked about Kadarius Toney, Rondell Moore, Tylan Wallace, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Terrace Marshall, would like to see a little bit more of him. I just didn't think he dominated at LSU. I knew he was behind Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. But again, LSU, like Clemson with Amari Rodgers, is wide receiver U. Even though they don't have the best quarterback play, Joe Burrow excluded, tend to have a lot of good receivers come from those schools. I mean, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. Jamar Chase is about to be drafted. Justin Jefferson, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry. Excuse me. You got some good receivers that come from there. Clemson. You got DeAndre Hopkins. You had who was another good receiver from Clemson? Mike Williams is another. Amari Rodgers fits into that mold. Elijah Moore, at first, I was not that impressed with him. But as I started to watch more film, I could get into Elijah Moore. I really could. And one play that I was very impressed with Elijah Moore was against South Carolina. And I don't know how South Carolina blew coverage but they blew it big time. Y'all go back and watch Elijah Moore versus South Carolina. There's a particular play, and I want to say he was lined up to the left side in the slot. Don't know how they blew coverage, but somehow Elijah Moore just ended up wide open all by himself. So much that Lane Kiffin, he saw him, he throws his clipboard. He literally threw his clipboard in the air, was running down the sideline with him. He was that open. I'm like, I've never seen a wide receiver that open like that, with like nobody within like 15 yards of him. That's something. Again, some other guys, I like the combination of De'Ami Brown and Daz Newsome at North Carolina. Two very fast receivers. Seth Williams, a big body guy. Schwartz, who TD was talking about, big time speed. He's a guy that I definitely like. Definitely was impressed with. And again, I want y'all to go. Yeah, definitely go back and watch. You definitely go back and Josh Palmer is a good player, like he said. Dwayne Estridge, I liked him. But definitely go watch film on Jalen Darden of North Texas. All he is a touchdown machine and a speed demon. And that's really why I was looking at a lot of my rankings on is speed, because that's what we need. Dimitri Felton is another guy. Can play running back, can play receiver. And so he's impressive. Shi Smith, I didn't get a chance to really look at a lot of film on. I heard his name, especially at the Senior Bowl. And Des Kirkpatrick is another guy from Louisville who was impressive in the Senior Bowl game. Definitely some other receivers. So, I mean, there's so many receivers. It's so deep. Of course, I was going to miss a few. And another guy that I saw on a video, I didn't really know about him. I think his name is Tamarian Terry, who played at Florida State. Raw, inconsistent, but the guy has speed on him. And that's just something that I really like with that. But to end the show, again, here are my needs that we have in the draft: edge rusher, interior defensive line, wide receiver. Cornerback now is a huge need now. I was saying cornerback as far as getting some depth, but now we got to find a guy that can step in and start right now with the void of Malcolm Butler, because now you got Christian Fulton and Adoree Jackson. Fulton, I think with a full year could be good. Adoree, I've lost a lot of confidence. Left a lot to be desired. And so that's going to probably be the next episode. We're going to get into corners and, and safeties, because safety for depth is a need. And, as you heard from TD, we were talking, there were some guys that he was looking at, like a J.C. Horn from South Carolina, Greg Newsome from Northwestern, Keith Taylor, Elijah Bowden from Washington, just to name a few that, are top possibilities. So those are some players that we're definitely going to talk about next week as far as who we could go into. Well, it might be 2 weeks from now. Next week, we're definitely going to talk about free agency. And, we'll probably pause on the draft for a few weeks as we talk about free agency and some things that are happening. But definitely probably at the end of March going into April, we'll definitely pick back up the draft series going into corners, offensive line, and backup quarterback as well. So to end the show with my blue bombshell, kind of a blue bombshell / shut your pie hole. And I meant to mention this last week, but I wish I did with this. So first off, to any ladies that end up watching this show, happy belated International Women's Day. That happened a few days ago. I forgot to mention that when I was talking about the trade of Isaiah Wilson. Also, I just had that thought in my mind, and I just forgot it was that. And it was something else that just popped into my head. We know tourney time is here. March Madness. Tournaments are going on. and everything. So we know that that's going on. But my blue bombshell is a shut your pie hole, and it has to go to Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies. I love Ja Morant. I am a big fan. I love the kid. He's great. He's going to be a legend for us. But he ticked me off. What's up, Ken Moore? What's up, man? And he ticked me off because I had a bet through BetMGM, and I had a bet. I put $50 down in a parlay that I would have the Grizzlies win. I think this was against the Rockets, or it was the Rockets or the Wizards. I want to say it might have been the Wizards the first time last week. I put $50 that the Grizzlies will win. The over under was, I believe, 222.5 points. I went the under. Those hit. Both of those hit. The only other thing that had to hit was Ja had to score over 19.5 points. Get to 20 points, I would have won almost $300. Ja only scored 6 points. That was against the Rockets. Exactly. It was against the Rockets because then the Wizards play him and he goes off for 35 and 10 assists. That ticked me off. So, Ja Morant, I love you, but shut your pie hole and help me win my parlay bets. When I need you to score 20 points a game, score 20 points a game. Help me out. You cost me over $200. Seriously. But yes, Titan Podcast. That was what I was talking about. The Rockets game. I mean the Rockets game. Yes. Did I bet against the Clippers? No, I don't think I did that game. No, I didn't. I did not bet on that game. But yeah, that ticked me off. That ticked me off. That hurt my soul. Now, I'm hoping that the Fighting Illini, Illinois, I got money on them. So tighten up low, that's for you. I got money on the Illini to win the Big Ten. So I got some money on them to do that. So hopefully the Illini win the Big Ten. What's up, AZ Mick? What's going on? But that was what I wanted to speak on with that. And, I thank TD for coming on the show. I appreciate him. He's been like an inspiration to me and everything when I'm getting to my career. So I thank TD for coming on the show. I thank all of y'all for tuning in to tell you the truth. Next week, we will have a full show on free agency, the wildness that happens. I don't expect the Titans to go crazy in free agency in the beginning. I think they're going to be in that second wave, but we'll definitely see. I'm definitely going to read up more on Joseph Osai because I'm looking at it now where, they said that the pro day with Osai, he said he's been in touch with the Titans and will continue to be in the future. So he's spoken to them quite a few times. He said got a few more interviews coming up with him. So they are really talking to Joseph Osai a lot. Definitely. So that tells me, and he says he's open to being used anywhere on the field. That he thinks he can make an impact in his first year, or whether it be on special teams or as a defensive starter. So it'll be interesting to see if my wish comes true with Joseph Osai. AZ Big says, go Utah Jazz. Congrats to Mike Conley, to the maestro, the conductor, for making the All-Star team. I just hate that he didn't make the All-Star team as a member of the Grizzlies, and that's where it should have been with the Grizz. And let's see. Steven says you might want to wear green on free agency day. It is St. Patrick's Day on Wednesday. Maybe bring us some luck. So you know what? I probably will make sure I wear me some green for the show on Wednesday, without a doubt. But everybody, I thank y'all for tuning in tonight to Titans and Truth. I appreciate y'all as always. And we are going to be back. Probably going to do a little preview of free agency of this weekend. And then we're going to go into it on Wednesday night. So Y'all know what to do. Thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure y'all share this show out. Share it out. Follow on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And I will see y'all on Free Agent Day. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. Share it out. Love y'all. Tighten up.